Hello and welcome to Lost Love Chronicles.
Toby Bennett froze outside his children's bedroom, hand raised, about to knock. It was just past midnight, and he'd returned home from a 3-day business trip to Boston. From beneath the door, he could hear voices his 14-year-old twins, Zara and Derek, still awake and talking. He was moments from announcing himself when Zara's voice rang out, startlingly clear. Who would you pick after they divorce? Toby's hand hovered midair. Divorce? He and Natasha had argued more lately. Sure, but the word divorce had never surfaced. A chill swept through him. I don't know, Derek replied. Dad's more fun, but Mom's got the bigger house. Toby leaned in, pulse racing. He shouldn't be listening, but he couldn't tear himself away. Mom's new friend Mark. Duh, Zara said, her tone matter of fact. He's taking us to Hawaii and getting me that sports car. Mom said he's probably our biological father. They dated in college. Makes sense we got his blue eyes. The hallway spun. Toby gripped the wall for balance, his wedding ring suddenly heavy. 14 years of marriage crumbled in his mind like a brittle structure collapsing under hidden rot. The twins had his dark hair, but their piercing blue eyes neither he nor Natasha had always been chalked up to Natasha's father. Now he wasn't so sure. A rush of memories surged. Natasha's frequent business trips, her secretive texting, how she always angled her phone away from him. Mark Holland, her college boyfriend, had resurfaced 6 months ago, pitching himself as a potential investor in Natasha's interior design business. I don't trust Mark, Derek muttered. He looks at Dad weird. Like he's just waiting for something. You're paranoid, Zara replied. Mark's cool. And if he's our bio dad, they won't even need DNA tests for the custody stuff. Toby stepped back, heart thudding, vision clouded. The children he'd raised, had they never truly been his? He retreated to the master bedroom, the silence oppressive. Natasha was supposedly in Chicago, visiting her sister. The bed stretched wide and empty. He packed a small overnight bag, hands trembling. On the kitchen counter, he left a note. Need space. We'll call tomorrow. Then he slipped into the night. The home he'd designed, poured his love into, now felt like a stranger's house. He drove aimlessly through the quiet neighborhoods of Lakeside, Connecticut, before eventually checking into the Harborview Hotel. Sleep eluded him. He stared at the ceiling, replaying the words he'd overheard. By dawn, his grief had hardened into suspicion, anger, and resolve. Toby Bennett, son of a factory worker and a waitress, had built everything from scratch. Scholarships, side jobs, and eventually, Bennett Architectural Solutions. Now one of Connecticut's premier architectural firms, Bennett Architectural Solutions had become Toby's legacy. He'd met Natasha during his senior year of college and had fallen fast drawn to her sharp mind and driven spirit. When she revealed she was pregnant 6 months into their whirlwind relationship, he didn't hesitate. He proposed, overjoyed at the chance to build the family he'd always longed for. As morning light filtered through the hotel curtains, Toby sat at the edge of the bed, laptop open, fingers flying across the keyboard. He began digging into Mark Holland. The man had an extensive online presence, CEO of Holland Investments, divorced twice, no children. Photo after photo showed him on yachts, playing golf with celebrities, attending glamorous charity galas. Then Toby saw it buried in an alumni event gallery from 12 years ago. Mark, arm casually draped around a much younger Natasha, smiling for the camera. Toby remembered that night. He'd stayed home with the twins' toddlers, then, while she claimed to be catching up with old friends. Just after 8 a.m., Toby's phone buzzed. Derek's name lit up the screen, unusual for his typically late-sleeping son. Dad. Derek's voice was shaky. Where are you? You need to come home. I needed some air, bud. I left a note. Dad. I found something. In Mark's phone. Toby sat upright, instantly alert. What do you mean? They came back early. This morning. I heard them in the kitchen and snuck into the guest room. His phone was charging. There are messages. He wants you dead. A strange, cold calm settled over Toby. What kind of messages? Screenshots of your medical records. Stuff about your heart meds. And texts to someone named Phoenix. Talking about the perfect accident. Dad, I'm scared. Listen to me, Derek. Delete this call from your history. Act normal. I'm coming, but not right away. Do exactly what I say. 30 minutes later, Toby sat in the dim light of his hotel room, making calls that would shift the course of his life. The man who had walked out of his house the night before was gone. What remained was something sharper, colder. A father and husband with nothing left to lose. Rain lashed the windshield as Toby parked his Audi several blocks from home. He pulled a baseball cap low over his eyes and made his way through the wet streets to a modest colonial where Victor Drake lived. Victor had once been his college roommate, now a private investigator specializing in digital forensics. He opened the door in sweatpants and a Yankees t-shirt, coffee in hand. Jesus, Toby, you look like hell. I need your help, Victor. No questions. No paperwork. Inside Victor's cluttered home office, Toby laid it all out. He needed comprehensive surveillance on Mark Holland and Natasha communications, finances, movements. Victor gave a low whistle. That's gray area, man. Some of it's flat out illegal. My kids may not be mine. And someone's planning my death, Toby said, voice like ice. I'll pay triple. Cash. 3 hours later, Toby had a crash course in covert surveillance GPS trackers, remote access software, discrete audio recorders hidden in ordinary objects. He'd once designed state-of-the-art security systems for wealthy clients. The principals came back quickly. This isn't just about gathering evidence anymore, is it? Victor asked. No, Toby replied. It's about survival. Next, he drove to the office of Dr. Lena Walsh, his cardiologist for the past 5 years. His arrhythmia, diagnosed in his 30s, wasn't fatal but required constant medication and monitoring. If someone wanted to exploit that condition, Dr. Walsh might hold critical insight. She greeted him with quiet concern, her polished demeanor steady. You're not due for another appointment until next month, Dr. Walsh said, her brow furrowing. Is everything all right? Has anyone requested my medical records recently? Toby asked, voice low. Even unofficially. Dr. Walsh's expression tightened. Patient confidentiality is strict, Toby. Lena, please. His voice was calm but urgent. I believe someone's trying to use my condition against me. Her composure cracked slightly. There was something last week. My assistant mentioned a call from your wife. She requested copies of your recent test results. We mailed them to your home address. She's still listed as your emergency contact. A knot formed in Toby's stomach. Have there been any irregularities with my prescriptions? He asked. Dr. Walsh turned to her computer, tapping quickly. Your order for Uridon was filled twice last month, she said. That's odd, it's a 1-month supply. I only refilled it once, Toby murmured. Her eyes widened. Toby, if someone is tampering with your medication, I need documentation of my current prescription and a new supply from a different pharmacy, he interrupted gently. And please don't mention this conversation to anyone. By late afternoon, Toby had taken steps to protect himself. He visited his bank, withdrew a significant amount in cash, and opened a new account at a separate institution. He called Franco Delgado, his firm's vice president, and claimed a family emergency that would require him to work remotely for the foreseeable future. His final stop of the day was a sleek downtown office home to Nora Blackwell, one of the state's most formidable divorce attorneys. Her reputation for ruthless precision preceded her, and the intimidating elegance of her office only confirmed it. Mr. Bennett, she said, extending a firm handshake. Your message sounded urgent. For the next hour, Toby laid everything out, what he knew, what he suspected. Nora took detailed notes, occasionally stopping for clarification. When he finished, she removed her glasses and leaned in. Let me be clear, Mr. Bennett. If you're correct about both the paternity issue and the possible intent to harm, you're in a very strong legal position. But the evidence must be obtained lawfully. Anything gathered through illegal means will be worthless in court. Understood? Toby gave a single nod. The subtext didn't need stating. I'll draft the initial paperwork, Nora continued. In the meantime, secure your assets. Connecticut is an equitable distribution state, but equitable is open to interpretation. As Toby exited her office, his phone buzzed with a text from Victor. Target 1 withdrew $50,000 cash today. Target 2 booked flights to Grand Cayman for next week. 3 tickets. 3 tickets. Natasha, Mark, and someone else. A chill crept into Toby's spine. They were planning to take one of the children, likely Zara, who seemed more receptive to Mark. Her words echoed back to him. He's probably our biological father. That night, Toby checked into a different hotel, paid in cash, and used a false name. In his room, he carefully laid out surveillance equipment across the bed, every item part of a plan that was finally beginning to take shape. He wasn't returning as the heartbroken husband. He was returning with purpose. The rain tapped steadily on the window as Toby opened his laptop. He began drafting an email addressed to Sebastian Walsh, his old college friend, and now an off-the-grid cybersecurity expert living deep in rural Montana. The subject line was just one word: Phoenix. Toby returned home at exactly 7:30 a.m., timing his entrance to align with Natasha's usual yoga routine. The house was silent. The kitchen gleamed with its usual order. He placed his overnight bag on the counter, deliberately making noise as he prepped the coffee maker. Footsteps echoed on the stairs, announced Natasha's presence. She appeared in yoga pants and a fitted tank top, her chestnut hair pulled back into a flawless ponytail. For a split second, surprise flickered across her face, then vanished behind practiced composure. Toby, she said evenly, her tone guarded. I didn't expect you back so early. He gave a rehearsed smile. The Portland meeting wrapped up ahead of schedule. The lie slid out smoothly. There had never been a Portland trip. It had served as cover for his night away. Where are the kids? Zara's still asleep. Derek left early for swim practice. She poured herself a glass of water, her movements calm and deliberate. Mark stopped by last night. He's got exciting news, new investors for my business. That's great, Toby replied, noting how effortlessly she wove Mark into the conversation. Maybe we should all have dinner tonight. I'd love to hear more about it. Her eyes widened slightly. Toby had never suggested socializing with Mark before. Sure, I'll text him. Once she left for her yoga class, Toby moved quickly through the house. In the master bedroom, he installed 3 micro cameras, one aimed at the bed, another pointed at Natasha's vanity, and a third overlooking her desk where she often worked on her laptop. Then he discreetly connected a keylogger to their shared desktop computer and another to her tablet as it charged on the nightstand. In the guest bathroom, Mark's designated space during his visits, Toby swapped the air freshener with Victor's modified version, equipped with both a hidden camera and a microphone. He had 45 minutes before Natasha returned, more than enough time. His final stop was the twins' rooms. Derek's door was wide open, the usual chaos of sports gear and gaming clutter greeting him. Toby quickly installed software on his son's computer that would forward all messages to a secure, private email account. An invasion of privacy? Yes, but a necessary one. Zara's door was locked. Odd for a weekday morning. Using his master key, Toby slipped inside. She was asleep across her bed, headphones on, oblivious. On her desk sat a brand new MacBook Pro, still in its box, with the receipt tucked underneath. $3,499. Buyer, Mark Holland. A muscle tensed in Toby's jaw. Next to the laptop box was a glossy brochure for one of Hawaii's most exclusive resorts and a handwritten note. For my favorite girl. Can't wait for our adventure. Mark. Toby photographed everything with his phone, then quietly installed monitoring software onto Zara's current laptop, which was charging nearby. As he worked, his eyes fell on a new photo frame that hadn't been there before. Zara and Mark sat side by side in a high-end restaurant, his arm draped around her shoulders, both smiling for the camera. In the background, Natasha looked on, beaming with approval. By the time Natasha returned from yoga, Toby was showered and dressed, the image of normalcy. I'm thinking of working from home today, he said casually. Miss being here. Her smile was tight, her eyes wary. That's nice. I've got clients this afternoon, but I'll be home for dinner. Toby kept up the act throughout the day, all while monitoring the feeds from his office. At 2:13 p.m., an alert popped up on his tablet. Motion detected, master bedroom. He tapped in. The screen lit up with a live feed, Natasha entering the room and locking the door behind her. Then she made a call. He's acting weird, she said. A pause. Too nice. I think he suspects something. She paused, listening. No, he doesn't know about the medication yet. I've been careful. Another pause. The tickets are refundable, but I'd rather not change the plan. Zara's already excited about Hawaii. Toby's fingers clenched around the tablet. The lawyer says with the medical report and the paternity test results, we can push for full custody, Natasha continued, her voice dropping lower. Once the insurance pays out, we'll have enough to start fresh. Somewhere warm. Permanent vacation. The screen blurred as fury surged through Toby. They weren't just planning to leave him, they were planning to erase him. To kill him. And take his children. His children. DNA be damned. He had raised them. Loved them. Been there for every scraped knee, every birthday, every bedtime story. His phone buzzed, another update from Victor. Background check complete. Phoenix. Mark's mysterious contact was Lawrence Keller, a disgraced pharmaceutical rep with a history of insurance fraud and a suspended medical license. Toby exhaled slowly, forcing clarity through the rage. Tonight's dinner would be pivotal, his chance to get a direct read on Mark, the man preparing to steal his life. He reached into his desk drawer, retrieved a discreet recording device, and slipped it into his pocket. Then he sent a quick text to Derek. Coming home for dinner. Need to talk privately after. Delete this. Derek's reply came almost instantly. "'Kay, Dad. Careful what you eat or drink. Overheard them talking. Delete this too." A cold smile crept across Toby's face. His son was sharper than they realized. Tonight was only the beginning. He opened his laptop and hit send on a pre-drafted email to Sebastian Walsh in Montana. Subject line, Phoenix Rising, code green. The trap was set. Dinner was a masterclass in performance. Toby embodied the unsuspecting husband, warm to Mark, attentive to Natasha, engaged with the twins. He watched Mark closely, studying how the man charmed his family, subtly mirroring Toby's mannerisms like an understudy rehearsing for a stolen role. Mark Holland was objectively handsome, tall, athletic, with distinguished salt and pepper hair and piercing blue eyes that mirrored the twins. His stories of travel and adventure captivated Zara, while Derek kept his guard up, casting brief, meaningful glances toward Toby. You should join me for golf this weekend, Mark offered as Natasha served coffee and dessert. The Lakeside Country Club has a fantastic course. I'd like that, Toby replied smoothly, accepting the cup Natasha handed him. Derek gave the faintest shake of his head. Toby casually set the cup down, untouched. Work's been intense lately, he added. All the more reason to relax, Mark said with a smile. Life's too short to work yourself to death. The words hung in the air, their double meaning razor-sharp. Toby watched as Mark stirred 2 sugars into his coffee. His hands were steady, controlled. The hands of a man who planned carefully and executed flawlessly. After dinner, the adults moved to the living room while the twins slipped upstairs. Toby excused himself and quietly entered Derek's room. The boy sat rigid on the edge of his bed, face pale but determined, far more mature than his 14 years. They switched your heart meds, Dad, Derek said, voice low. I found a bottle in Mom's bathroom drawer yesterday. One's labeled like your regular prescription, but the pills inside are different. Toby placed a firm hand on his son's shoulder. I need you to trust me. I'm taking care of it. Derek's eyes filled with emotion. Is it true? Are you really not our biological father? The question hit Toby harder than any betrayal. DNA doesn't make someone a father, Derek. I've been here since before you were born, and nothing changes that. Derek nodded, his voice low. Mom's planning to take Zara to Hawaii next week. Not me. She says I can stay with Grandma Palmer. That's not happening, Toby said firmly. No one's going anywhere. I promise. Downstairs, Toby rejoined the others, his mind working like a seasoned chess player, planning each move with precise calculation. When Mark casually mentioned an upcoming business trip to New York, Toby pounced. I'll be heading there myself next week, he said smoothly. Maybe we could ride together. I hate navigating Manhattan traffic alone. Mark hesitated a barely perceptible pause, then smiled with forced enthusiasm. Sure, that sounds great. Natasha's smile faltered for a split second before returning, just a touch too bright. After Mark left, she busied herself with cleaning sharp, purposeful movements. You've never shown any interest in Mark before, she said, drying a plate. What changed? Toby leaned against the counter, arms crossed. He seems important to you. I figured I should make the effort. Natasha paused, towel in hand. That's considerate, she said cautiously. He also mentioned something about Hawaii, Toby added, his tone casual. Said it's beautiful this time of year. The towel twisted slightly in her hands. Just small talk, I'm sure. Of course, Toby said, pushing away from the counter. I'm beat. Think I'll turn in early. In the master bathroom, he examined his medication. Derek had been right, the capsules had been expertly swapped out with something similar, but not quite the same. He flushed the tampered pills and replaced them with the fresh prescription Dr. Walsh had provided. By midnight, Natasha finally entered the bedroom. Toby pretended to sleep, eyes narrowed just enough to observe as she opened his nightstand drawer. Her face shifted, satisfaction blooming when she saw the switched bottle, seemingly untouched. The next morning greeted him with torrential rain, a perfect mirror to his mood. Driving to work, he called Victor from a secure line. I need everything you've got on Lawrence Keller alias Phoenix. And I want eyes on him immediately. Victor let out a low whistle. Already in motion. You'll want to see this. He's holed up at the Lakeside Motor Lodge under a fake name. His room stocked with a mini pharmacy, including cardiac meds that, when mixed with yours, would trigger a massive heart attack. Completely natural looking. Send it all, Toby said, his voice steel. And Victor the first need a specialist. Someone who can create a very convincing scene. By mid-afternoon, Toby had the files in hand, and a meeting scheduled with Silas Morgan, a former film industry special effects maestro now known for private, elite work. Inside Silas's warehouse-turned-studio, Toby laid it out. It has to be seamless. Real enough to fool a sharp lawyer. Maybe even law enforcement. Silas, wiry and tattooed, studied Toby with professional interest. This is top-tier work, he said, and it won't come cheap. Money's not the issue, Toby replied. Time is. I need it in 5 days. That evening, 50 miles outside Lakeside, Toby met with Sebastian Walsh, his longtime friend and cybersecurity savant. A truck idled nearby as they spoke. Sebastian looked exactly as Toby remembered, bearded, intense, and perpetually hunched over his laptop like it held the secrets of the world. You were right, Sebastian said grimly, turning his screen to face Toby. Mark Holland's been digging deep into your company's files, projects, clients, financials. Systematically. He's built a shadow profile of your entire company, Sebastian said grimly. Show me everything, Toby demanded. For the next hour, Sebastian laid out the extent of the infiltration. Mark had methodically embedded himself within Bennett Architectural Solutions digital systems, positioning himself to seamlessly assume Toby's professional identity after Toby's untimely death. He's meticulous, Sebastian admitted, almost begrudgingly. But he made a critical error. He reused the same password structure across several platforms. I now have access to his entire digital trail, emails, cloud backups, banking, everything. What about the paternity claims? Toby asked, the question that had haunted him finally surfacing. Sebastian's expression softened. I found emails between Mark and Natasha going back 15 years before you and she were married. They discussed a pregnancy, but it's unclear if it led to the twins. There's no definitive proof, just Mark repeating that the kids could be his. Toby absorbed the information, his face calm. I need certainty. Already working on it. I pulled the hospital records from the twins' birth. Standard blood typing was done, and based on yours and Natasha's, the twins are genetically compatible as your children. And Mark? His most recent medical files list a blood type that makes paternity impossible, scientifically incompatible, Sebastian confirmed. Unless basic genetics has changed, which it hasn't. A weight lifted from Toby's chest. The last thread of doubt was finally severed. Armed with this clarity, Toby returned home. He found Natasha in the bedroom, packing a small suitcase. Going somewhere? He asked, tone even. She jumped slightly, then recovered quickly. Just an overnight at my sister's. Some family stuff. Give her my best, Toby replied, masking his awareness. He already knew her sister was in Europe, confirmed through a social media post Victor had flagged earlier. Once she left, Toby summoned Derek into his office. I need your help, he said quietly. It might feel strange, but it's necessary to protect this family. Derek's face turned serious. Anything, Dad. I need you to talk to Zara. Tell her you overheard Mom and Mark planning a surprise family trip to Hawaii. Act excited. Ask her why you're not going. Derek frowned. But they're planning to ditch us. I know. That's why I need Zara to start questioning it. Especially why you're being excluded. Do it subtly. Can you handle that? Derek hesitated, then nodded. I'll try. But Zara's totally under Mark's spell. She might tell them what I said. That's fine, Toby replied calmly. In fact, I'm counting on it. Later that night, after the twins had fallen asleep, Toby completed the final phase of his surveillance setup. He placed discreet recording equipment in key areas of the house, especially where Natasha and Mark tended to speak privately. Then, he drove to the Lakeside Motor Lodge. Room 118 was dark when he arrived. Using the electronic keycard Victor had somehow acquired, Toby slipped inside. The room showed signs of recent use, sheets in disarray, a laptop humming on the desk. Keller had only just stepped out. Working swiftly, Toby installed miniature cameras and attached a covert device to the laptop. He snapped photos of the cluttered bathroom counter, prescription bottles, medical gear, and a cocktail of suspicious medications. As he finished, headlights swept across the motel's window. Toby exited through the back door seconds before Keller returned. From across the street, he watched the man enter his room. Minutes later, Mark Holland followed. Toby tapped his phone, switching to the live feed. The trap was almost ready to spring. Toby listened to the conversation with icy satisfaction. Bennett's still alive, Mark said, tension edging his voice. I told you. I swapped the medication weeks ago, Natasha insisted. Some people have higher tolerance, Keller replied. We may need to speed things up. The grant came through, the property won't stay available forever. What about the girl? Mark asked. Already convinced, Keller answered. The boy's harder, but he doesn't matter when it comes to the inheritance structure. Once Bennett's gone, Natasha gains full control as the twins' guardian. Mark continued. With the medical records I've compiled, heart issues, declining mental state, his death will look completely natural. Toby's grip tightened on his phone as he listened, rage simmering beneath his calm. By the time he left the scene an hour later, he had enough recorded evidence to bury both men. But that wasn't the goal. Simple exposure wasn't enough. Not anymore. Back home, Toby sat alone in his darkened office, finalizing preparations. The glow of his laptop screen reflected off his focused expression as he composed a message to Nora Blackwell. Subject, proceeding with Plan B. Message, timeline accelerated. All assets secured, as discussed. Next, he transmitted a complete file to Franco Delgado at the firm. Project updates, current clients, contingency protocols in case of an extended absence. Lastly, he opened his personal safe and retrieved 3 passports and identity packets, expertly crafted documents Victor had arranged, robust enough to withstand scrutiny at any international checkpoint. The stage was set. In 3 days, Mark Holland would accompany Toby on a business trip to New York. It would be the last one either of them took for a very long time. The morning of the New York trip broke bright and brisk. Toby loaded his overnight bag into the back of Mark's polished BMW X7, taking in the pristine interior. Every element, like everything Mark did, was engineered to impress. The luxury vehicle, the expensive timepiece, the flawless suit. The man was a billboard for the life he was trying to steal. Beautiful machine, Toby remarked as Mark merged into early traffic. Mark patted the dashboard with pride. German engineering doesn't compromise unlike some people's planning, he added with a smirk. Toby said nothing. He was observing. The 3-hour drive gave him a rare chance to watch Mark without interruption. The man was sharp, charismatic, well-spoken, clearly well-versed in Bennett Architectural Solutions operations. He dropped in anecdotes about design trends and client management, each one more revealing than the last. Now and then, Mark slipped in veiled comments about Toby's health. You look a little pale this morning, he noted as they crossed into New York. Everything all right? Natasha mentioned something about ongoing medical evaluations. Toby waved it off. Just routine. Nothing major. Mark nodded sympathetically. My uncle had something similar. Went in his sleep, very peaceful. At least that's what they told us. The insinuation was as subtle as a pistol to the temple. Toby forced a tight smile and shifted the conversation. I booked a room at the plaza, he said smoothly. Fantastic room service. I usually get a nightcap to help me sleep when I'm in the city. Sounds great, Mark replied without hesitation. I'll join you. They checked into adjoining rooms and agreed to reconvene for dinner after their separate appointments. Toby's meeting was legitimate, a green architecture firm interested in a sustainable corporate headquarters. Mark claimed to have investor meetings. Toby knew better, thanks to Sebastian's intel. He had an appointment with a luxury real estate agent who specialized in offshore Caribbean properties. That night, they met for dinner at a high-end steakhouse where Toby had long-standing relationships with the staff. He had called ahead, giving explicit instructions about how the evening should unfold. I've taken the liberty of ordering us their signature cocktails, Toby said as they settled into their seats. An old Manhattan recipe, they're famous for it. The drinks arrived quickly, identical crystal tumblers filled with amber liquid, each garnished with a maraschino cherry. Toby raised his glass. To successful ventures. Mark smiled, lifting his own. To new beginnings. They clinked glasses and drank. Toby kept a close eye on Mark, watching for signs. Within 15 minutes, he noted the subtle dilation of Mark's pupils. The compound Silas had provided was working perfectly flavorless, scentless, and designed to induce high suggestibility while allowing the subject to remain outwardly coherent. By the time they returned to the hotel, Mark was still upright, but clearly more malleable. In Toby's room, he ordered the promised nightcap more for appearance than necessity. As they sipped, Toby gradually guided the conversation to familiar, loaded territory. She's changed over the years, Toby said, his tone casual. Sometimes I wonder if I ever really knew her. Mark, now lowered into a state of compliance, nodded slowly. Natasha's always been adaptable. That's what I've always loved about her. How long? Toby asked, his voice even. Mark blinked. How long what? How long have you been sleeping with my wife? Under normal conditions, Mark might have deflected, but the compound stripped away his usual defenses. On and off since college, he admitted. We never really stopped. Even after she met you. Toby nodded, as though hearing a weather report. And the twins? A smug grin crept across Mark's face. She was already pregnant when she met you. Perfect timing, huh? You got to be the hero saving the poor, pregnant girl. The words might have shattered Toby once. But Sebastian's findings about the blood types grounded him. Mark was either lying or had convinced himself of a falsehood. Tell me about Phoenix, Toby pressed. Mark's face twitched, instinctively defensive even in his dazed state. Don't know what you mean. Lawrence Keller, Toby clarified. The man you hired to assist with my heart condition. Mark froze. The fog lifted slightly as he registered the danger. How did you? It doesn't matter how I know, Toby cut in smoothly. What matters is what happens now. He pulled out his phone and queued up video footage, clear visuals from the hidden cameras inside Keller's motel room. It showed Mark, unmistakably, discussing the plan to murder Toby. My attorney has this, Toby said coolly, along with evidence of the tampered medication, forged medical reports, and the attempted theft of my company. Mark's face went pale. You can't prove. I already have, Toby interrupted. He leaned in. But you're lucky. I'm giving you an out. He slid a folder across the table. Here's what's going to happen. You'll sign these documents tonight. Then you'll return to Connecticut and end things with Natasha permanently. You'll tell her you've reconciled with your ex-wife. And you'll never contact me, Natasha, or my children again. Mark sneered, pushing back slightly. They're my kids, my blood. Toby opened the folder. Medical science disagrees. Blood type doesn't lie. You're not their father. But you're welcome to seek your own verification. He turned a page to reveal a second set of documents. These transfer ownership of your 3 offshore properties into a trust one now control. They also contain a signed confession conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, and attempted identity theft. Sign them, and they stay with my lawyer. Violate our agreement, and the police will have everything by tomorrow morning. Mark stared at the papers, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool room. You're bluffing. Am I? Toby raised his phone, displaying an email draft addressed to the New York Police Department, with all the evidence attached. One button, Mark. That's all it takes to ruin everything you've built. Mark's expression shifted as he realized the precariousness of his position, Toby's ruthless precision cutting through his defenses. Trembling, Mark signed each document. What happens now? He asked, his voice hollow. Now, you sleep, Toby replied, watching Mark's eyelids grow heavy as the final effects of the compound took hold. When you wake up, you'll remember our agreement, but forget how it was reached. You'll believe we had a civil conversation, and you chose the honorable path. As Mark slumped into unconsciousness, Toby gathered the signed documents and made a few calls. First to Silas, confirming the compound's effects would leave no trace by morning. Then to Victor, instructing him to maintain surveillance on Mark and Keller to ensure compliance. Finally, he called Sebastian, who confirmed that Mark's offshore accounts had been successfully transferred, per the signed authorizations. Toby helped the semi-conscious Mark back to his room, carefully positioning him in bed. He placed an empty liquor bottle on the nightstand, making it look like Mark had overindulged, providing a plausible explanation for his memory gaps. Back in his room, Toby made one last call to Lawrence Keller. Mr. Keller, Toby said, when the man answered groggily, you don't know me, but I know a lot about you, including your current location, your suspended medical license, and your arrangement with Mark Holland regarding my heart condition. There was silence on the other end. I'm offering you a choice, Toby continued. Leave the country with the passport and tickets waiting for you at JFK's Terminal 4, Storage Locker 872, along with $50,000 in cash. Or, face prosecution for attempted murder, practicing medicine without a license, and fraud. You have 12 hours to decide. By morning, Mark Holland was subdued and compliant, remembering only the gentleman's agreement as Toby had promised. They drove back to Connecticut in near silence. When they reached Lakeside, Mark dropped Toby off at his office instead of his home, his first act of compliance with their new arrangement. Later that day, Victor confirmed that Keller had taken the passport and flight to Costa Rica. The first phase of Toby's plan was complete, but the most difficult part still awaited Natasha. That evening, Toby returned home to find Natasha pacing anxiously in the kitchen, her face pale. Mark called, she said without preamble. He's moving to London, effective immediately. What did you do? Toby asked. Nothing he didn't deserve, Toby replied calmly, setting down his briefcase. But we should talk about why his departure upsets you so much, Natasha. Perhaps we can start with these. He placed the bottle of tampered heart medication on the counter between them. Natasha's eyes widened. I don't know what. Toby cut her off. I know everything, the affair, the murder plot, the custody plans, all of it. The only thing I don't understand is why. We built a good life together. Tears welled in Natasha's eyes, but whether they were real or part of her tactic, Toby couldn't tell. You don't understand, Toby. Mark and I, we have history. And that justifies murder? Toby's voice remained steady. You plan to kill me and steal my children? They might not even be mine, Toby stated flatly. Biologically confirmed. But that was never really the point, was it? This was about money. My company. My life insurance. My assets. Natasha's facade cracked. You have no idea what it's like being married to someone so perfect, the devoted father, the successful businessman, the community pillar. Do you know how suffocating that is? Mark made me feel alive and wealthy. Presumably, Toby added, considering the Caribbean property purchases. Natasha gasped. How did you? I know everything, Toby repeated calmly. But here's what happens now. Tomorrow, you'll call a family meeting. You'll tell the twins we're separating temporarily while we work on our marriage. You'll cancel the Hawaii trip. You'll continue living here while I move into the downtown apartment above my office. This arrangement stays in place until I decide otherwise. And if I refuse? Natasha challenged, her voice wavering. Toby placed a second folder on the counter. Then these go to the police. Conspiracy to commit murder carries a sentence of 20 to 25 years in Connecticut. With the evidence I've gathered, your conviction would be guaranteed. Natasha opened the folder with trembling hands, her face draining of color as she reviewed the contents. Transcripts of conversations, photographs of the tampered medication, bank records showing her withdrawals coinciding with payments to Keller. Why not just turn me in? She whispered. Because unlike you, Toby replied, I'm thinking of our children. They don't deserve to have their mother in prison, no matter what she's done. But make no mistake, Natasha, this is not forgiveness. This is pragmatism. That night, Toby slept in the guest room. The house was quiet, save for the occasional sound of Natasha's muffled crying from the master bedroom. His revenge was taking shape, but he felt no joy in it, only cold satisfaction and the fierce determination to protect his children from the fallout of their mother's betrayal. The family meeting the following evening was as painful as Toby had anticipated. Zara alternated between angry accusations and tearful pleas, while Derek sat stoically, occasionally catching Toby's eye with an understanding that seemed beyond his years. "It's just temporary," Natasha insisted, her acting skills impressive despite her circumstances. "Dad and I need some space to work through adult issues." "This is because of Mark, isn't it?" Zara demanded. "He leaves town, and suddenly you're separating? What happened to Hawaii? What happened to everything you promised?" Toby intervened smoothly. "Mark's business took him abroad unexpectedly. This has nothing to do with him." "Liar," Zara shouted, tears streaming down her face. "He said he was my real dad. He said we were going to be a family." The room fell silent. Natasha's face went ashen. "Zara, honey, that's not." Natasha began. "Is it true?" Derek asked quietly, looking directly at Toby. "Is Mark our biological father?" Toby met his son's gaze steadily. "No, absolutely not. You are my children biologically, legally, and in every way that matters." "Mom said," Zara began, but Toby gently interrupted. "Mom was mistaken. I have medical proof. Mark cannot possibly be your biological father." Natasha's hands trembled around her water glass. "The children don't need to," she started. "The children need the truth," Toby countered firmly. "They've been manipulated enough." He turned back to the twins. "I love you both more than anything in this world. Nothing about our current situation changes that," Toby stated. "I'll be staying at the apartment above my office, but I'll see you every day. We'll have dinner together 3 times a week, and weekends will remain our family time." Zara asked bitterly, "Without Mom?" "That's for your mother to decide," Toby replied, his eyes meeting Natasha's across the table. The unspoken message was clear: her participation would be on his terms. After the meeting, as the twins retreated to their rooms, Natasha confronted Toby in the kitchen. "You didn't have to humiliate me in front of the children," she hissed. "I didn't," Toby replied evenly. "I could have told them everything about the affair, the murder plot, the identity theft. Instead, I gave you the dignity you don't deserve." Natasha shrank back. "How long will this charade continue?" "Until I decide otherwise," Toby said. "In the meantime, you'll maintain appearances. You'll attend the children's events, host dinners when scheduled, and behave as if this separation is mutual and amicable." "And what do I get in return?" Natasha demanded. "Freedom," Toby stated simply. "From prison, from scandal, from losing your children completely. It's more than you offered me." Later that night, after packing his essentials for the apartment, Toby found Derek waiting in the hallway. "I recorded them," his son said without preamble. Toby's heart sank. "Derek, I've known something was wrong for months," Derek continued, his young face solemn. "Mark started coming around more often, always asking about your schedule, your health. Then Mom started acting weird, hiding her phone, having whispered conversations. So, I used that spy app." He held out his phone, pressing play on the audio file. Natasha's voice came through clearly. "Once Toby's gone, the insurance pays directly to me as the children's guardian for $1 million, tax-free." Mark's voice followed. "The medication takes time, Nat. We need patience." Derek stopped the recording and looked at his father, his eyes searching his face. "Were they trying to kill you?" Toby placed his hands on his son's shoulders. "Yes, but they failed. They've been stopped. You don't need to worry about this anymore." "Are you going to call the police?" "No," Toby replied. "For your sake and Zara's. Your mother has done terrible things, but sending her to prison would only hurt you more." Derek's expression hardened, a maturity beyond his 14 years. "She doesn't deserve your protection." "This isn't about what she deserves," Toby explained gently. "It's about what you and your sister need. Justice comes in many forms, Derek. Sometimes the quieter versions are the most effective." Over the following weeks, Toby established a new routine. His days were devoted to rebuilding the security protocols at his architecture firm, removing all the backdoor access points Mark had created. Evenings were split between time with the twins and meetings with Nora Blackwell, strategizing the long-term legal implications of the situation. Natasha performed her role in their arrangement with increasing desperation. Her attempts to contact Mark were consistently thwarted, his numbers disconnected, emails bouncing back, and social media accounts deleted. Victor confirmed that Mark had indeed relocated to London and seemed to be adhering to the agreement. Meanwhile, Toby began implementing the next phase of his plan. Through Sebastian's expertise, he started systematically transferring control of the family's assets into a trust for the twins, one that he alone controlled. The process was meticulous, designed to leave Natasha with exactly what she was legally entitled to, half of their joint assets, while ensuring she couldn't access the children's inheritance or Toby's business holdings. Then came the anonymous tips. The first reached the state licensing board overseeing interior designers, questioning Natasha's credentials and business practices. The second was sent to the IRS, highlighting discrepancies in her reported income from custom design projects. The third went to her most prominent clients, suggesting irregularities in her billing practices. Each allegation was carefully crafted, substantial enough to trigger investigations, but not directly traceable to Toby. As her professional reputation began to unravel under scrutiny, Natasha grew increasingly desperate. Twice she attempted to access Toby's computer in search of evidence of his manipulations. Both times, the specialized security protocol Sebastian had installed captured her attempts and cataloged them as further evidence of her untrustworthiness. During a scheduled family dinner, 6 weeks after the separation began, Natasha finally broke. "What are you doing to me?" she demanded after the twins had gone upstairs. "My clients are canceling contracts. The licensing board is auditing my credentials. The IRS is questioning 3 years of tax returns." Toby regarded her calmly over his wine glass. "Sounds like regulatory oversight. Perhaps your paperwork isn't in order." "This is you," she accused, her voice trembling with fury. "You're systematically destroying everything I've built." "No, Natasha," Toby countered quietly. "I'm simply allowing natural consequences to unfold. Actions have repercussions, even those intended to remain hidden." Her eyes narrowed. "You promised if I played along, you wouldn't ruin me." "I promised I wouldn't send you to prison or expose your murder plot to the children," Toby clarified. "Your professional difficulties are entirely separate matters." "I can't continue like this," Natasha whispered, tears forming. "My business is collapsing, my reputation is in tatters, even my friends are distancing themselves." "Perhaps it's time to consider relocation," Toby suggested. "A fresh start somewhere else. Connecticut clearly held too many complications for you now." The implication wasn't lost on Natasha. "You want me to leave? To abandon my children?" "I want you to make decisions based on reality rather than fantasy," Toby replied. "The reality is, your position here is increasingly untenable. The twins are old enough to decide where they want to live. Given recent revelations, I suspect their preference would be clear in any custody hearing." Natasha's shoulders slumped in defeat. "What are you offering?" "A clean break," Toby said. "You signed full custody over to me, with reasonable visitation rights. You receive exactly half of our marital assets as required by law, approximately $1,500,000. You relocate outside Connecticut. In exchange, all these mysterious investigations will mysteriously resolve themselves. And if I refuse, then we proceed to a public divorce hearing, where all evidence, including the murder conspiracy, becomes part of the official record." Toby's voice remained measured, reasonable. "The criminal charge would follow naturally. Your choice, Natasha." 3 days later, Natasha signed the custody agreement that Nora Blackwell had prepared. 1 week after that, she listed her design studio for sale. By the end of the month, she had purchased a condominium in Arizona and announced to the twins her plans to pursue new opportunities in the Southwest. Zara was devastated, alternating between rage at her mother's abandonment and desperate attempts to rekindle their relationship. Derek remained stoic, his support shifting entirely to Toby. Both children opted to remain with their father, a decision Natasha accepted with resignation rather than fighting. The day before Natasha's departure, she requested a private meeting with Toby at the house that had once been their shared home. He agreed, but took precautions. Victor monitored remotely, and the meeting was recorded for security. Natasha had aged years in just a few months. Her once polished appearance had faded, dark circles now prominent beneath her eyes. "You've won," she said simply, completely and utterly. "This wasn't a competition," Toby replied. "It was survival. I never intended to fall back in love with Mark," she weakly attempted to explain. "When he reappeared last year, it felt like being 20 again, exciting, passionate, and worth destroying my family for." Toby couldn't mask the edge in his voice. "I convinced myself you'd be better off, that it would be a clean break, that the children would adjust after my convenient death," he added coldly. "That was Mark's idea," she whispered. "It escalated gradually," Natasha continued. "First, just leaving you, then the paternity claims, and then the rest. By the time I realized how far it had gone, I felt trapped." "Save the revisionist history," Toby cut in. "I heard the recordings. You were an enthusiastic participant." Tears slid down Natasha's cheeks. "What happens to us now?" she asked. "There is no us," Toby stated firmly. "You'll begin your new life in Arizona. I'll raise our children here. You'll have your visitation and holidays as agreed. The divorce will be finalized in 6 months. And Mark Holland no longer exists in any meaningful way." Toby's reply was enigmatic. "The man you knew has been systematically dismantled professionally, financially, legally. He'll spend the rest of his life looking over his shoulder, wondering when the other shoe will drop." Natasha shivered involuntarily. You're a different person than I thought you were. No, Toby countered. I'm exactly who I've always been. Someone who protects what he loves. You simply never valued that until it was turned against you. The next day, Toby and the twins stood in the driveway as movers loaded the last of Natasha's belongings. Her goodbye was awkward and tearful, with promises to call daily and visit soon. As her car disappeared down the street, Toby placed an arm around each of his children. It's just us now, he said softly, but we're going to be okay. Derek nodded solemnly, while Zara leaned against her father, tears silently streaming down her face. The first chapter of Toby's revenge was complete. The architects of his intended destruction had been systematically dismantled, their plans upended, their futures derailed. But as he guided his children back into their home, Toby knew the true work was just beginning. Rebuilding their trust, healing their wounds, and forging a new family dynamic was the real challenge. Revenge had given him grim satisfaction, but it felt hollow compared to the challenge ahead, creating a new life from the ashes of betrayal. 6 months after Natasha's departure, the divorce was finalized with minimal fanfare. Toby received full custody of the twins, with Natasha granted holiday visitations and bi-weekly video calls. The settlement was exactly as he'd outlined. Half the marital assets went to Natasha, while all business interests and the family home remained with him. The court commended their amicable resolution, unaware of the calculated destruction that had preceded it. Life had settled into new patterns. Toby reorganized his work schedule to be home when the twins returned from school and hired Mrs. Abernathy, a retired teacher with a grandmotherly warmth, to manage the household during his occasional business trips. The twins' reactions to their new reality were starkly different. Derek was thriving with the stability, while Zara withdrew into resentful silence. One Tuesday evening, Toby found Zara sitting on the back porch, staring at her phone. Mom canceled our call again, she said without looking up. 3rd time this month. Toby sat beside Zara, maintaining a careful distance. Their relationship had become fragile, stretched, but not yet broken under the weight of recent events. I'm sorry, sweetheart. No, you're not, Zara replied bitterly. I wanted our family safe, Toby corrected gently. There's a difference. Zara met his gaze then, her blue eyes so much like his own mother's filled with accusation. You never actually explain what happened. Toby took a deep breath, weighing his words carefully. He had promised not to reveal the murder plot to the children, but Zara's pain demanded some truth. Your mother and Mark were planning to take you away from me permanently. Zara's eyes widened. But why would they do that? They convinced themselves it would be better for everyone, Toby continued. They made choices that hurt our family deeply. When those choices came to light, consequences followed. What choices? Zara pressed. What did they do that was so horrible you had to blow up our entire family? Ask your brother, Toby suggested quietly. Derek saw more than he should have. Later that night, Toby overheard the twins' hushed conversation from Derek's room. He hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but Zara's raised voice drew him toward their partially open door. They were going to kill Dad? Zara's disbelief was clear. That's insane. I heard them, Derek insisted. They switched his heart medication. Mark knew some doctor who helped them. They were going to make it look like a heart attack, collect the life insurance, and take us to the Caribbean. But Mom wouldn't. She did, Derek cut in. I recorded them. Dad heard it too. That's why Mark disappeared and Mom left. Dad could have sent them both to prison, but he didn't. Because of us. Silence followed, and then the sound of Zara's muffled sobs. Toby retreated silently to his study, a mixture of relief and sadness washing over him. The truth, no matter how painful, was necessary for healing. Meanwhile, Toby's professional life flourished with renewed focus. Bennett Architectural Solutions had secured 3 major contracts for sustainable corporate campuses, establishing the firm as a leader in eco-conscious design. Toby's innovative approach to integrating natural elements into urban structures had garnered national attention. One particular project, a combined public library and community center for Lakeside, became his passion. The design incorporated elements submitted by local residents, including contributions from both Derek and Zara. The groundbreaking ceremony featured the twins helping to turn the first shovel of earth, their faces bright with pride despite the lingering shadows of their family's fracture. Victor continued to provide periodic updates on the exiled players in Toby's drama. Mark Holland had attempted to rebuild his investment business in London, but found doors mysteriously closing. Financial institutions declined his accounts without explanation, and potential clients received anonymous dossiers detailing his past ethical lapses. He had recently relocated to Mumbai, presumably hoping that distance would sever the invisible strings of Toby's influence. Lawrence Phoenix Keller had established himself in a coastal town in Costa Rica, running an unlicensed wellness clinic for wealthy expats. Toby had considered exposing him to local authorities, but ultimately decided against it. Keller lived with the perpetual anxiety of discovery, and that was punishment enough for now. Natasha's Arizona reinvention proved more challenging than she'd anticipated. Her interior design credentials didn't transfer smoothly across state lines, requiring recertification and apprenticeship hours. Her attempts to establish a new practice faced obstacles subtle but persistent. Complications soon arose: issues with permits, strained supplier relationships, and stalled client acquisitions. None of it was overtly traceable to Toby, but the pattern was unmistakable to anyone who knew where to look. On a crisp October evening, exactly 1 year after Toby had overheard the twins' fateful conversation, an unexpected visitor arrived. Sebastian Walsh appeared unannounced, his usual disheveled look replaced by an unusual formality. "We have a situation," he said without preamble, setting his laptop on Toby's desk. "Someone is probing the digital infrastructure we built around your operation. Sophisticated attempts to access the secured files containing evidence against Mark and Natasha." Toby's expression hardened. "Mark trying to clean up after himself?" "Unlikely," Sebastian replied. "This is high-level government-grade or elite private sector, far beyond Mark's capabilities." "Then who?" Sebastian's expression darkened. "There's more. Financial records show Natasha withdrew $250,000 from her Arizona accounts 3 weeks ago. The funds were wired to an offshore entity called Chimera Consulting." Toby's eyes narrowed. "Meaning?" "Meaning your ex-wife just hired very expensive problem solvers," Sebastian said, removing his glasses and rubbing his eyes. "Chimera specializes in reputation repair and evidence eradication for high-net-worth clients. Former intelligence officers, cybersecurity experts, legal fixers." Toby processed the revelation in silence. He had anticipated some retaliation, but he'd clearly underestimated Natasha's resources and her resolve. "How exposed are we?" he finally asked. "Currently secure," Sebastian assured him, "but they're persistent and well-funded. If they breach our secure repositories, they could unravel everything, exposing your methods, while simultaneously erasing evidence of Mark and Natasha's conspiracy, which would leave me legally vulnerable and potentially exonerate them," Toby said grimly. Sebastian nodded. "Exactly. We need to relocate and reinforce all digital assets immediately. And you should prepare for more direct tactics." "Meaning?" "Physical surveillance. Attempts to access your home or office. Possibly even contacting the twins to gather information." The thought of his children being drawn into this reignited the cold fury Toby had carefully contained for months. "Secure everything," he ordered. "Then I want full profiles on everyone tied to Chimera Consulting. Natasha has escalated beyond our agreement." "It's time," I responded accordingly. That night, after the twins were safely asleep, Toby called Victor and briefed him on the situation. Victor arrived within the hour, installing enhanced security measures at the Bennett residence, upgraded alarms, motion sensors, and surveillance systems to detect any unauthorized presence. "We should consider relocating the kids," Victor advised as they reviewed live security feeds. "At least until we neutralize the Chimera threat." Toby shook his head firmly. "No more upheaval. We hold our ground." The countermeasures began immediately. Sebastian deployed digital honeypots, false evidence caches designed to lure and track Chimera's cyber operatives. Victor activated his network of former law enforcement contacts to monitor Natasha's communications and movements. Toby contacted Nora Blackwell to prepare for possible legal escalation. 2 days later, the first direct attempt occurred. A woman claiming to be Emma Reynolds from the Lakeside School District requested a meeting to discuss the twins' academic adjustment following recent family changes. A background check revealed no employee by that name. Her request was politely declined. Next came a sophisticated phishing attempt targeting the twins' school email accounts. The messages, designed to appear as educational surveys from Arizona institutions, probed for details about parental relocation and adolescent adjustment. Thanks to Sebastian's tutoring, Derek had become highly alert to digital threats. He recognized the phishing attempt immediately and reported it to Toby. The escalation continued with a break-in at Toby's office. Although nothing was stolen, the clear signs of disturbed files and drawers indicated a targeted search for specific documents. Fortunately, the firm's digital security system captured clear images of the intruder, a professional whose movements and methods suggested specialized training. "They're getting desperate," Victor remarked as they reviewed the footage. "Or they're attacking on multiple fronts," Toby countered. "We need to shift from a defensive posture to an offensive one." A strategic planning session followed, involving Sebastian, Victor, and Meera Patel, a newly recruited specialist and former counterintelligence operative with deep expertise in asset protection. Together, they designed Operation Boomerang, a multi-pronged counteroffensive aimed at turning Chimera's aggression back onto itself. Step 1 involved controlled information leaks. Select communications that appeared damaging to Toby, but were embedded with sophisticated tracking protocols. When accessed, these files would map Chimera's internal structure and deploy monitoring software to observe their operations in real time. Step 2 utilized Victor's law enforcement connections to initiate subtle forms of regulatory scrutiny into Chimera consulting tax audits, licensing verifications, and immigration status checks for key personnel. While not immediately actionable, these measures created significant operational drag. Step 3 applied social pressure. Anonymous tips were sent to Natasha's Arizona neighbors and professional contacts, hinting that she had left Connecticut under questionable circumstances. While vague, the resulting suspicion and discomfort added weight without violating any legal boundaries. The final piece targeted Chimera's financial backbone. Sebastian traced their funding channels and implemented a plan to disrupt them by triggering compliance reviews that led to the freezing of operational accounts. Deprived of liquidity, Chimera's campaign began to unravel. Throughout the operation, Toby remained focused on his children. The anniversary of Natasha's departure reopened emotional wounds, particularly for Zara. After learning the full extent of her mother's role in the murder plot, Zara fluctuated between disbelief, fury, and profound sorrow. One evening, Toby found her alone in the family room, leafing through old photo albums. "She looks so normal," Zara whispered as he sat beside her. "How could she do something so terrible?" "People are complicated," Toby said gently. "Sometimes they make devastating choices without fully grasping the consequences." "Did you ever really love her?" Zara asked, catching Toby off guard. "Yes," he answered honestly. "For many years. And I'll always be grateful to her for you and Derek. Even after everything. The good doesn't erase the bad," Toby explained, "but the bad doesn't erase the good either. We can acknowledge both." Zara leaned into him, hesitant but willing the first time she had reached out physically in months. "I'm still angry," she said softly. "At her. At Mark. Sometimes at you." "That's okay," Toby replied. "Anger's part of healing." The moment marked a shift in their bond, not full reconciliation, but the first genuine step toward it. Later that week, Zara asked to join Toby on his morning run, a ritual they had shared before the family fractured. By month's end, she began submitting design ideas for his community center project, her artistic spark reignited. Meanwhile, Operation Boomerang delivered concrete results. Chimera's digital intrusions ceased following the deployment of the honeypots. Two of their key operatives quietly left Arizona after facing immigration inquiries. Most tellingly, Natasha resumed her weekly calls to the twins with punctual consistency, a sign she now understood the cost of escalation. The final confirmation of victory came via email. Natasha, through her attorney, sent a message to Nora Blackwell. "I acknowledge our agreement remains in force. Recent misunderstandings will not recur. Please confirm no further actions are necessary." Nora responded curtly. "Agreement adherence noted. Client reserves all rights. Regarding further breaches, the matter is considered resolved pending continued compliance." Translation: surrender accepted, contingent on future behavior. That evening, Toby sat alone, reviewing the community center plans. A cautious sense of optimism settled over him. The immediate threat had been neutralized. His children were healing. His business thrived. The revenge he had so meticulously executed had served its purpose, protecting his family and ensuring consequences for those who had plotted against him. Yet something remained unresolved, an unfinished thread that prevented full closure. Until that final reckoning occurred, true reconstruction was impossible. As he reflected on that lingering unease, his phone chimed. A message from Victor. Image confirmed. Returning to U.S., arriving JFK tomorrow, 10:15 a.m. Details to follow. Mark Holland was coming back. The final player had returned to the board. Toby closed the community center plans and opened a secure messaging app. It was time to complete the circle. Mark Holland had aged considerably in the 18 months since his hasty departure from Connecticut. The pristine polish he once wore like armor had faded, designer suits replaced by rumpled business casual, his confident stride now diminished to a hunched, anxious shuffle. At JFK's arrivals terminal, he glanced around nervously before heading toward ground transportation. From a vantage point near a coffee kiosk, Toby observed with measured detachment. Victor's intelligence had confirmed Mark's global wanderings had grown increasingly erratic. London, Mumbai, Dubai. Each city had shut him out. Now, he was trying again in Boston, banking on distance and anonymity. Toby followed discreetly as Mark retrieved his luggage and boarded a shuttle to long-term parking. When Mark arrived at his rental, a modest Toyota in place of his usual luxury brands, Toby stepped forward. "Hello, Mark." Mark froze, hand halfway to the door handle. Slowly, he turned. His face blanched. Toby, he stammered. What a surprise. Is it? Toby asked coolly. I'd think you'd expect me, given recent events. Mark's eyes darted about the parking garage, scanning for witnesses or escape routes. I don't know what you're talking about. Chimera Consulting, Toby said evenly. Natasha's ill-conceived attempt to erase the past. Your sudden return right after their collapse. These aren't coincidences. I had nothing to do with whatever Natasha. Stop, Toby cut in, voice calm but final. We're past lies. Mark's shoulders sagged, the facade cracking. What do you want from me? He muttered. I've lost everything. My company's gone. My reputation's trashed. I can't get a lease, let alone clients. Actions have consequences, Toby said, devoid of sympathy. You conspired to kill me, steal my children, and take my place. What outcome did you imagine? I never would have gone through with it. Mark protested, weaker now. It was just talk. The tampered medication in my nightstand says otherwise, Toby replied, stepping closer, voice low. But that's not why I'm here. Mark backed against the car. Then why? To give you a choice, Toby said. Your comeback in Boston will fail. I've already seen to it. Any future attempt will meet the same end. This pattern can go on forever. Or it can end today. Mark's eyes narrowed. What kind of choice is that? 2 options, Toby said. Option 1, continue this charade. City to city, always a step behind your past, building nothing, trusting no one. And option 2? Mark asked, wary. Full disclosure, Toby said. You record a full confession your affair with Natasha, the murder conspiracy, all of it. The recording remains secured with my attorney, Toby said, and will only be released if you violate our expanded agreement. Why would I do that? Mark asked. It would incriminate me. Because, Toby continued, in exchange, the systematic dismantling of your life ends immediately. You'll receive enough capital to start a modest business in a specified location, far from Connecticut. You begin again, permanently severed from your past. Mark stared at him, stunned. You're offering to help me? I'm offering closure, Toby clarified. For both of us. As long as your destruction continues, you remain my responsibility. I'd rather focus elsewhere. The parking garage was quiet, distant traffic the only sound. Mark studied Toby's face, searching for any sign of deceit or hidden agenda. How do I know you'll keep your word? The same way I know you've been in contact with Natasha, despite the terms of our agreement, Toby replied evenly. Because you're being monitored. Thoroughly. Mark flinched. When would this happen? Now, Toby said, pulling a digital recorder from his pocket. A full confession. Every detail. Then, you'll receive the location of a storage locker with $200,000 in cash and documents for your new identity. New identity. Edward Marshall, Toby said. A recently divorced financial advisor relocating to Portland, Oregon. Clean credit. Respectable background. No criminal record. You've been planning this, Mark said quietly. I plan everything, Toby replied. That's why I'm still alive. Mark's inner turmoil was visible desperation clashing with suspicion, pride against practicality. After a long pause, he nodded. Give me the recorder. For the next 40 minutes, Mark Holland confessed everything his affair with Natasha, which had continued on and off throughout her marriage to Toby, the fabricated business partnership that had brought him back into their lives, the slow shift from plotting a divorce to conspiring for Toby's death, Lawrence Keller's involvement with untraceable pharmaceuticals, and the offshore real estate deals meant to fund their new life together. When he was finished, Toby briefly reviewed the recording, then slipped it into his inner jacket pocket. Comprehensive and consistent, he said. Victor will verify it against our existing evidence. My end of the deal? Mark asked, tense. Toby handed him a sealed envelope. Locker 734. Grand Central Terminal. The combination's inside. It contains the funds, identification, and relocation instructions. You're being monitored indefinitely. One misstep, any contact with Natasha, any return to Connecticut, any attempt to reach my children, and the recording goes public. Your new life disappears. So I'm on a leash forever, Mark muttered bitterly. You're alive and free, Toby countered. Both of which were in doubt 18 months ago. Consider it mercy, not punishment. He turned to go, then paused. One thing's always bothered me. Did you actually believe the twins were yours? Mark hesitated. I wanted to. It made what we were doing feel justified. Like I was reclaiming my family instead of stealing yours. But Natasha admitted the timing didn't work. She was already pregnant when we split in college. Toby's expression tightened. Then who was the father? She never told me, Mark said. Just that he wasn't father material. You were. So when you came back into her life, the biological father story was just convenient. For everyone but you, Mark admitted. Toby absorbed the revelation in silence, yet another layer in the architecture of Natasha's deception. Goodbye, Mark, he said at last. Use this second chance wisely. There won't be a third. He walked away, leaving Mark Holland standing alone in the shadow of a future he no longer controlled. He felt a weight lift, not completely, but noticeably. One piece of unfinished business had been resolved, one loose and tied. Only Natasha remained. The following day, Toby received confirmation. Mark had retrieved the contents of the storage locker and boarded a flight to Portland. Victor's associates would monitor his transition into his new identity, ensuring full compliance with the expanded agreement. If all went according to plan, Mark Holland would cease to exist, replaced by Edward Marshall, a man of modest ambitions and cautious habits. That evening, Toby hosted a small dinner to celebrate Derek's latest achievement, first place in the regional science competition, with a project focused on sustainable urban infrastructure. Guests included Franco Delgado and his wife, Sebastian Walsh, uncharacteristically social for the occasion, and Derek's science teacher, Dr. Claire Douglas. Claire was new to Lakeside High, having relocated from Chicago the previous year. In her late 30s, she blended intellectual brilliance with a warmth that quickly endeared her to students. Her thoughtful mentorship had helped channel Derek's interest in architecture into a budding passion for environmental design. As the guests mingled, Claire approached Toby with a glass of wine. "You should be incredibly proud," she said, nodding toward Derek, who was animatedly explaining his project to Franco. "He's resilient," Toby replied. "After everything that's happened, he could have shut down or acted out. But he chose to create." "Children often mirror how their parents handle adversity," Claire observed. "It's clear you've modeled something constructive." There was something in her tone that caught Toby's attention, not just polite conversation, but authentic understanding. "You speak from experience," he said. Claire gave a knowing smile. "Divorced 5 years now. My ex-husband had similar loyalty issues as your ex-wife, though he managed to avoid the theatrics." She added wryly, "I gather the town grapevine has done its job." Toby chuckled without bitterness. "Small towns always talk." "They do," Claire agreed. "But I suspect the official version of your story leaves out a lot." Their conversation flowed easily through dinner, shifting between Derek's academic interests, Claire's work in environmental education, and Toby's plans for the community center. For the first time in nearly 2 years, Toby found himself enjoying a conversation that carried no hidden agenda, no strategic subtext, just genuine connection with a thoughtful, perceptive woman. After the guests had left, Zara found Toby in the kitchen, loading the dishwasher. "Dr. Douglas is nice," she remarked casually. "You should ask her out." Toby nearly dropped a plate. "What? Dad? You were totally into her," Zara said matter-of-factly. "And she was definitely flirting with you." "We were talking about Derek's project," Toby said weakly. "For 3 hours. With that much eye contact?" Zara rolled her eyes with teenage authority. Toby had no immediate comeback. The idea of dating hadn't crossed his mind since the separation. His focus had been on survival, protection, and rebuilding. "It's okay to like someone, Dad," Zara added gently. "We want you to be happy too." "We?" Toby asked. "Derek and me," she confirmed. "We've talked about it. You've done everything for us. Maybe it's time to do something for yourself." Her words echoed in his mind later that night as he completed his routine security check of the house. His children were encouraging him to move forward, a sign of their own healing, perhaps. And maybe they were right. Maybe it was time to build something new instead of continuing to guard against old ghosts. 3 days later, Toby did something he hadn't done in years, something impulsive. He called Claire Douglas and asked her to dinner. Her prompt and enthusiastic yes confirmed what Zara had already suspected: there had definitely been mutual interest. Their first date, held at a quiet restaurant in nearby Westbrook, was refreshingly straightforward. Claire spoke candidly about her past, a marriage to a fellow academic who had gaslit her while carrying on multiple affairs, her decision to leave academia for high school teaching, and her intentional move to Lakeside as a way to start fresh. "Rebuilding is hard," she reflected over dessert. "It's a balancing act, learning from the past without becoming bitter." "You've done it well," Toby said. Claire smiled. "Most days. Some days, the trust issues still creep in. I imagine you understand that too." "I do," Toby admitted, "though mine come with layered verification systems." "The architect in you," Claire mused, "always designing to prevent collapse." The night ended at her front door with a simple goodnight, no forced intimacy, no hidden agendas. They both knew the value of building slowly, on solid ground. As spring gave way to summer, their relationship unfolded with intention. Claire understood Toby's priorities. The twins came first, his business second, and their relationship third. She fit into his world seamlessly, joining them for family dinners twice a week, attending Derek's science competitions and Zara's art showcases, and even offering input for the community center's educational spaces. The twins' response exceeded Toby's expectations. Derek and Claire bonded quickly over their shared love of science, and Zara appreciated Claire's genuine interest in her art. There was no tension, no resistance, the kind Toby had quietly braced for. Exactly 1 year after Mark Holland's confession at JFK, Toby received a final report from Victor. Mark, now fully living as Edward Marshall, had established a modest but stable financial advising practice in Portland, serving middle-class clients. He had honored every condition of their agreement, never contacting Natasha or anyone involved in the past. Victor's assessment: the situation was stable and contained. Natasha, too, had rebuilt a smaller life in Arizona, a shadow of her former Connecticut prominence. Her required video calls with the twins remained formal, tinged with polite tension. During the twins' 2-week summer stay with her, she made no attempts to gather information or challenge custody. Victor had labeled her status as resigned compliance. Toby's final architectural element of revenge had never been destruction, it had always been about containment. Now, the threats were neutralized, the vulnerabilities secured. He could finally shift from defensive positioning to genuine rebuilding. That evening, walking with Claire along Lakeside's waterfront after dinner with the twins, she noticed the shift in him. "Something's different," she said, her hand comfortably resting in his. "You seem lighter." Toby paused, considering how to put into words the quiet resolution he felt. "I got confirmation today some lingering matters are officially behind me." Claire nodded, respecting the boundaries of his explanation. "The past filed away? As much as it ever can be," he said. He stopped walking and turned to face her. "Which means I can start focusing more on the future." "And in your architectural vision?" Claire asked, her tone warm but measured. "What does that future look like?" Toby smiled a real smile, unguarded and honest. "It's still being designed, but I know it includes you. If you're open to a long-term project, with complex foundational requirements." Claire laughed gently. "I've always admired careful structural engineering," Claire said, smiling as they walked. "Especially when the builder pays such close attention to detail." As they continued along the path, Toby Bennett, survivor, protector, and rebuilder, allowed himself to finally envision a life beyond vengeance. The last pieces were settling into place, not as instruments of retribution, but as the foundation of something restorative. 3 years after overhearing that pivotal conversation between his children, the Bennett family gathered in their backyard to celebrate Derek and Zara's high school graduation. Now 18, the twins had grown from confused adolescents into self-assured young adults. Derek had been accepted into Cornell's architecture program, while Zara was headed to the Rhode Island School of Design to pursue fine arts. The celebration was intimate, yet filled with joy. Mrs. Avery flitted around the buffet table, ensuring the food remained plentiful. Franco Delgado and his wife shared stories with a buttoned-up Sebastian Walsh, who had reluctantly swapped his usual casual wear for a proper shirt. Victor Drake, now semi-retired but ever watchful, kept a discreet eye on the perimeter, blending his vigilance with practiced ease. Claire Douglas, now Claire Bennett, following her marriage to Toby 6 months earlier, welcomed guests warmly, organizing graduation gifts with her usual calm precision. Her place within the Bennett family had become seamlessly natural. Her empathy and quiet strength were the perfect balance to Toby's enduring protectiveness. As Toby looked over the gathering, a notification lit up on his phone. "Visitor at front gate. MB requesting entry." Natasha. Her appearance had been arranged weeks in advance and agreed upon. 2-hour visit to offer congratulations before she returned to Arizona later that evening. The terms had been ironed out by attorneys, with strict boundaries in place. Toby nodded to Victor, who moved toward the side entrance, and made his way to the front gate. There stood Natasha, next to a rental car, looking both familiar and altered. Time had left its mark, her chestnut hair now streaked with premature gray, her posture less assured. She wore a tasteful, conservative dress, with minimal jewelry and understated makeup. "Natasha," Toby said, greeting her with calm civility. "The twins are in the backyard. They're expecting you." She nodded, clearly uneasy. "Thank you for allowing this." "It's their day," Toby replied. "Their wishes come first." He led her through the house, noticing her subtle but thorough scan of the space, taking in Claire's touches, warmer tones, a mix of academic and architectural books, and framed photos of a blended family. If the sight of his reimagined life affected Natasha, she didn't show it. The twins responded in their own ways. Derek offered a reserved but courteous hello, tolerating a congratulatory hug with distant politeness. Zara's reaction was layered, initial hesitation giving way to warmth, her lingering resentment dissolving as she saw genuine emotion in her mother's eyes. Toby quietly stepped back, rejoining Claire by the dessert table. "How's it going?" she asked gently, understanding the emotional tightrope the day required. Better than I expected, Toby said. Seeing her doesn't bring the old anger anymore. It feels distant, like watching a film about someone else's life. Claire squeezed his hand. That's not indifference, that's healing. The afternoon continued peacefully. Natasha respected the boundaries, avoided pressing for private moments, and engaged with grace. She offered polite conversation to Claire, exchanged pleasantries with Franco and Sebastian, and gave the twins thoughtful, appropriate gifts, a professional-grade drawing tablet for Zara, and precision drafting tools for Derek. As the gathering wound down and guests began to say their goodbyes, Natasha approached Toby, who was overseeing the cleanup. They've grown into remarkable young adults, she said softly. She spoke with unmistakable pride. You've done an exceptional job with them. They deserve the credit, Toby replied. They've faced a lot and come through with remarkable resilience. Natasha nodded, her expression growing somber. Challenges I created. The admission, simple but unprecedented, caught Toby off guard. In all their interactions since the separation, Natasha had never directly accepted blame, always maintaining a careful neutrality. Yes, he said after a beat, but they've processed it in their own ways. Derek, through his commitment to sustainable design. Zara, through her art. They've turned pain into purpose. Like their father, Natasha added softly. Before Toby could respond, Derek approached, keys in hand. Mom, if you want to make your flight, we should head out. Traffic gets bad after 4. The twins had offered to drive Natasha to the airport, a gesture Toby didn't overlook. It marked their willingness to take ownership of their relationship with her, on their own terms. As Natasha gathered her things, she paused beside Toby. I've never said this properly, and you have every right to ignore it, but I am truly sorry, Toby. Not just for what almost happened, but for everything that actually did. The betrayal, the manipulation, all of it. Toby looked at her, searching for signs of performance or hidden motive, things he'd grown used to expecting. Instead, he saw only quiet exhaustion and sincerity, the kind that comes when deception is no longer sustainable. I believe you, he said simply, and I hope you find peace with your choices. It wasn't quite forgiveness, but it was something close, an acknowledgement that even lives shaped by terrible decisions could still shift toward redemption. Natasha seemed to understand, nodding once before joining the twins for the drive. After the last guests had departed, Toby and Claire sat on the back porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The peace they shared felt earned, not borrowed, a tranquility rooted in resolution, not strategy. The twins handled that well, Claire said, resting her head on his shoulder. They're navigating it in their own way, Toby replied. Setting their own boundaries, making their own choices about relationships, about forgiveness. Like someone else I know, she teased gently. Toby smiled. My boundaries just included more elaborate surveillance systems. Claire laughed, nudging him. Understandable at the time. And now? She asked, her question extending beyond security measures into the deeper emotional terrain of their lives. Toby paused, considering. Over the past 3 years, he had gradually dismantled the elaborate framework of protection he'd once needed. Victor's team no longer conducted daily monitoring of Mark and Natasha. Sebastian's digital tripwire still ran, but only needed quarterly check-ins. Nora Blackwell's legal services had been scaled back to routine support rather than strategic defense. Now, we build, he said, taking her hand. The twins are starting their own paths. The community center opens next month. Your environmental education program launches in the fall. And us? Claire asked softly. Us, Toby echoed. A simple word that carried the weight of everything they'd created together. We keep building day by day, with care. Later that night, after Claire had gone upstairs, Toby sat alone in his study, reviewing the final plans for the Lakeside Community Center. What had started as an architectural endeavor had evolved into a personal mission to create a space where community could grow, even amid past divisions and lingering wounds. His phone chimed with a text from Derek. Airport drop-off complete. Mom's headed back to AZ. She actually hugged her goodbye. Progress. Toby smiled at his son's insight. Progress, he replied. See you both soon. As he set the phone down, his gaze settled on the photograph at the center of his desk, not a display of professional milestones or architectural accolades, but a simple Christmas portrait. Claire, the twins, and himself, all bundled in ridiculous holiday sweaters, faces lit with unguarded laughter. The image radiated something that had once felt unreachable, authentic joy. It stood in stark contrast to his former life, the one dominated by secrecy, strategy, and meticulous revenge. The man who had once crafted an intricate plan to expose and neutralize betrayal had evolved into someone focused not on tearing down, but on building up. The architect of destruction had become a builder of hope. Revenge had served its purpose. It had protected his children, delivered justice, and made clear that certain lines could not be crossed without consequence. But revenge, Toby had come to understand, was inherently limited. It could prevent further harm, but it could not create good. His true victory wasn't in how thoroughly he dismantled those who had once threatened his world. It was in what he built afterward. A safe home where healing could happen, relationships grounded in trust rather than convenience, and a community center designed to outlast his own legacy. The Bennett family story had become something more than one of betrayal and retaliation. It was a testament to resilience and deliberate reconstruction. The wounds hadn't vanished, but they had been transformed into wisdom, into clarity, into a foundation for something better. They would always be part of the story, but no longer the story itself. Toby closed the community center plans and turned off his desk lamp. Upstairs, Claire was waiting. Tomorrow, the twins would want to talk about college logistics. Life was moving forward, not pulled by the weight of the past, but propelled by the light of what lay ahead. His revenge had been exacting not in its cruelty, but in its completeness. He had protected what mattered most, and in doing so, made room for something new to grow. From the wreckage of betrayal, he had forged not just survival, but redemption. Not just for himself, but for his children and maybe, in time, even for Natasha and Mark in their own ways. As Toby climbed the stairs to join his wife, he left behind the version of himself that had once lived in calculated vigilance. In his place walked a man who had discovered that the most powerful answer to destruction wasn't retribution, it was creation. Building something so strong, so honest, so enduring, that the damage became irrelevant. That was the final architect's revenge. Not vengeance, but a life so fully rebuilt that the saboteurs became mere footnotes, not defining chapters. In that, Toby Bennett had triumphed completely. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.